here, Shane. We're just going to go in order of the win-loss totals. No surprise, Texas A&M over under 9. Now that is a little bit of a surprise to me. I thought it would be, I predicted 10, but the win has it at 9. And again, let's go down the schedule, the 12-game schedule here for the Aggies. Several home games to start the season. Sam Houston State, Appy State, Miami, right there. That's your first 3 games, but they're all at home. You got to feel confident about all of those. And then you got Arkansas, which is, of course, in Arlington, at Mississippi State, at Alabama. Then you have a bye week, and you go at South Carolina. This is a tricky stretch right there.
Yeah.
Ole Miss at home, which beat you last year. Florida at home, at Auburn, UMass, and then finally LSU at home. So you're betting on a 10-win season. You can only lose 2 of those games if you're the Aggies. That's tough.
So it's at what is it at? 9.5?
9.
9? Okay. Yeah, I'm going big time over here, Mike. I mean, out of that $100, I'm putting all of it on this one. That's how confident I am. Texas A&M does not lose more than 2 games this year. I think this is the year, Mike. What about you?
Now, let me ask you this, though, because here's the latest buzz. And I know it's spring football. So, take everything you're hearing with a grain of salt. We're so far away from the season. But I'm curious, Shane, because here's the latest out of camp there. We're all waiting to see, is it going to be Haynes King under center, who was your starting quarterback last year?
Yeah.
Obviously went down. He never was able to play again. The transfer from LSU, Max Johnson, who's started last year for LSU, not the greatest performance, but he's got more experience at the quarterback position than anybody on the roster.
Right.
We're all waiting to see who it's going to be. But according to what's coming out of College Station, Shane, the freshman, 5-star freshman, Connor Weigman, even Jimbo says it, and they just held a scrimmage over the weekend, and Weigman was apparently held his own against those 3, against those 2. Does that change anything? And now, again, I'm not saying, hell, he's a 5-star. So,
yeah.
I mean, maybe that just says this Weigman is incredible.
Right.
And they may have to put him on the field. Or you could read it as, hell, we've seen Haynes King in one big-time game. He threw multiple interceptions. We've seen Max Johnson. He's been up and down. I got a lot of confidence in those guys. So I'm not sitting here saying they're bad. But it's interesting that we got a freshman here who's in the mix. And who knows? I mean, it seems far-fetched to me that he's going to be your day one starter.
Right.
But if he's that good, you got to go with him. We don't just play a guy because doesn't have experience, but he's the best quarterback. So,
yeah.
Does that throw a wrench into any of your picks here? Hell, maybe this guy, and what they're saying is he's basically a bigger Johnny Manziel.
Right. Well, a little bit, Mike. And when I say a little bit, because multiple quarterback systems have worked. There's been a lot of failures in years past, and you've looked at them and you can pinpoint them and say, well, this was a mess. This didn't work out. But there have been successes as far as multiple quarterback systems, especially when you got a young guy involved. Now, what I don't want to see is a 3-headed monster. What you'd love to see is, okay, this is my guy, and the young kid's coming along, because you look at the way their schedule's set up, and you're going to get into so you got Sam Houston, Appalachian, Miami. I think in those first 3 weeks, that's perfect time to get your young guys some reps, not just to bounce back between Max and Hank. You know what I'm saying? Right. To pick your starter and then lean back on this young kid. And if he is performing, you're getting into a little bit of a spot when you get to that Arkansas, Mississippi State, Alabama. That's a tough little slate. You got to have this quarterback situation figured out by September 24th, in my honest opinion. So, and by that time, if you do got a young kid getting reps, he's been under the spotlight. I think, you can kind of start releasing him a little bit. Thank God they don't have Alabama on the first start of that stretch. But, again, when you look at a three-headed monster, the one thing I don't like, Mike, is you're chewing up reps here in the offseason, especially you got some new faces down there. You got some new quarterbacks, you got new talent. There's those reps are so valuable, and there's only one first team, and there's only one second team, and if they're not getting all those reps, that's just taken away and going to hurt them on the back end. So, rumors are rumors, and things are going to happen, but I think by the time we get to fall ball here, Mike, we're going to have this thing down to 2 quarterbacks, and I have heard a lot of good things about the youth of this team. So I'm expecting, personally, one of those guys to be A1 alpha. Don't be surprised if the other doesn't hit the portal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's wild, Shane. I mean, now we're swinging back to the confidence level in this. Now that I'm thinking about it, I mean, if you're going under, you're saying Aggies are going to go.
Yeah.
The rest of the SEC is going to love this, but 8-4 again.
Yeah,
and that just ain't going to happen.
No.
I mean, if it does, I mean, we got serious questions here on Jimbo, and I know they just did that, but you got to think that's fired up this team. It's fired up this coaching staff to where it changes. And hell, that's all I've heard this offseason, Shane, is, aside from their success on the recruiting trail, hell, they just picked up another 5-star. But Jimbo is basically saying this team, we're lacking leaders, we're lacking this, we're lacking that. They're not stepping up. We're basically getting what we see every year from Nick Saban when he's basically saying, I got this garbage team. We can't beat Mercer, and then they come out and kill everybody by 50 points. So I think Jimbo may be setting us up for that. So I won't go quite as far as you with putting my whole 100 on the over.
Yeah.
But I would certainly put my whole 100 on not going under, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I'd probably put 75, 80% of my money on A&M going over. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it does. And it is a risky bet. You look at last year, and maybe that's why we got a little bit more quarterback controversy this year, just because Jimbo may not want to get stuck you put all your eggs in one basket and you run a certain type of offense, and that man goes down, you have to change everything. And if you're ill-prepared, you can see what happens. And we saw that last year with A&M. I don't think that happens again, and maybe that's why we're giving an extended look to some of these guys. But like I said, I think by fall ball, definitely by week 1, we're going to have this thing narrowed down to 2, and those are going to be your 2 guys. The other one you won't hear about.